Today, we are at a new card show in Memphis. We are still trying to get from a water energy up to $10,000 in Pokemon cards. This has definitely been a tough challenge, as would be expected of any trade-up challenge. However, I thought maybe hitting up a new venue might make it easier to do some trades. Before we continue, you may have noticed we rebranded. We were originally called Power Up, but I decided to change it to Dr. Pokemon specifically because I will be a doctor in a few months, so I figured it was an appropriate change to the brand. As always, I like to get a lay of the land. First thing I noticed was we have fewer vendors overall compared to the National Card Show that I usually attend, but we have more Pokemon vendors overall, which made me hopeful. After taking a lay of the land, I was trying to decide what the best way to go about trades would be today. After all, we did have our Charizard worth over $200, but it also made it hard to trade, so I was debating if we needed to tackle this another way. And as we go through this, you may notice an extra pair of hands coming into the view once in a while. That is because I have a friend joining me today as we go through this card show. The first booth that we hit up had a good assortment of Pokemon cards laid out, and I figured we could find something that would help our trade-up challenge. He did say that he was interested in our Ninetales, which was honestly giving me some issues last time we tried to trade up, so that was really good to hear this time around. As we looked through his table, I realized that some of his cards were actually in another language. I think it was German, which was pretty cool because I'd never seen any German cards before. However, I wasn't sure if that was going to be an issue trading down the line, so I decided to ignore those for now. After looking through all his cards, I spotted a nice Charizard and I thought it might be an easier trade, and our friend was more than willing to trade for it, which was really great to hear. Next up, we spotted a lone binder of cards and asked if they were taking trades for it. Unfortunately, he said that it was for a client of his who was just wanting to sell it all, so we couldn't get any progress done there, but it's still great to sift through their cards and see what they had. As we were looking around, someone said they could take us to someone who had Pokemon cards, so we followed him. We showed them my cards and saw if we could make a deal. We went through their slabs and they offered a Charizard, Rayquaza, and Ho-Oh card, and it was tempting, but the issue with the Charizard was that someone had written their name on the back, so I figured I probably wouldn't be able to trade it easily down the line. I told him I'd come back around and see what else the show had. As we went to the rest of the booths, I realized no one was really interested in trading here. They only wanted to sell. So even though we had a lot of vendors, most of them weren't going to be helpful for my end goal, which was to trade up. I did end up finding some people who were just trading in the back and decided to see if I could join in, maybe make a quick deal here or there. I ended up talking to one of them about their collection and seeing if we could make a deal. He was a veteran and school teacher who had an amazing collection. We talked about how fun it is to collect and how he recently finished up his base set collection. He also mentioned that he was working on his Team Rocket set next. After that, we discussed some of the cards that I was hoping to trade from his collection. I really wanted his Delta Species Raichu since Delta Species was my favorite set, so I was hoping we could make a deal. Now, my wingman was telling me that I probably shouldn't do that since if I got that Delta Species Raichu, I'd probably want to keep it, which honestly is an issue I have anytime I trade any cards, but I really just wanted that Raichu. As we talked, a little kid came by and asked if I could trade his Zapdos for my Charizard. It was a quick deal and I was happy to do it. Honestly, the value was about the same, which doesn't really bother me, but I just really like the look of that Zapdos. Figured it might be easy to trade anyway, so figured why not. After making a deal with this kid, I went back to talk to the veteran/teacher and see what we could do. He unfortunately was not ready to let that Raichu go. Personally, I wouldn't be either, so he offered me a Mewtwo instead, which on hindsight I think was probably a good deal. So at the end, we ended up making this trade and he actually wanted to take a picture of it because he thought it was the most interesting trade he's ever made, and personally I really love this trade myself. At this point, we hadn't really done any big trades yet, but I was happy with the progress we made, even though it was mostly one-to-one trades. Next up, we went back to our first vendor and made a quickie deal for a Victory Bell and a Calyrex VMAX, for the Zapdos we just got in the hopes that having more cards would possibly help with the trading power. At least that's what I was hoping for. After that, we found someone with a personal collection and decided to take a look. Unfortunately, he wasn't interested in trading with me. It really wasn't that big of a deal to me though, because I just appreciated looking through his collection, especially that Moonbryon he had at the very beginning. I mean, man, this kid had a great collection going for him. We decided to hit up the vendor with the Charizard, Rayquaza, and Ho offer, and we looked through his personal collection and saw so many Delta species, which made me so happy to see. I mean, he had a Delta species Blastoise, which I'd never actually seen in person before, and it was so cool to see. I'd never realized that the Delta species Blastoise was a fighting type. Who knew? It was just so cool to look at. We unfortunately couldn't make a deal, but he said I could take a pack from their pull box, which had a sticker and 3 cards, which personally I really appreciated. We decided to go to the back again and open our 3-card packs. I was surprised that I actually had some decent cards. I mean, it was free, so I wasn't expecting much, but these were actually going to be really useful ammo down the line. My friend also had some nice ones as well, but if I'm being honest, I think I had the better pulls. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Who had the better pulls of their 3 cards? I'm still gonna say me, I might be biased, but I was pretty happy with my pulls. We went back to our first vendor friend to see if he might be interested in the 3 cards that I pulled, and he offered us these 3 cards in exchange to help out with the rest of the challenge, which definitely did. At this point, we were headed out. We thought this was probably the best we were going to be able to do for the day. But there was a vendor right at the entrance who stopped us and asked if we would be interested in making a trade. He wanted to help us out and gave us a Pikachu, Genghis-Khan, and Vaporeon for our Charizard, which was a great way to end this because honestly, I needed to get rid of that Charizard. I'd had trouble trading it down the line before, and these cards were some heavy hitters that I knew I could do something with further down. However, we decided to hit up a card shop called Nash Cards that had a booth at the show but didn't bring their cards. We looked through our cards and tried to see what deals we could make because honestly they were interested in helping out and we honestly needed some of their cards. They had some older cards that I knew could make a big dent down the line for me. We ended up deciding on getting the Ninetales, the Scizor, and Tyranitar for my Jesse and James, Zapdos, and Dragonite. However, I asked him to throw in a booster pack, so he also gave the Champions booster pack as a bonus, which I thought would probably help a little bit more down the line since Champions booster packs are pretty sought after. So at the end of day 5, this is how we ended up doing on our Memphis road trip. Let me ask you, do you think we made good progress today?